This lesson is on the surface area and volume of prisms. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to find the surface area and volume of any prism. A prism is a three-dimensional shape with a top and a base that are congruent polygons and lateral faces or sides that are parallelograms. Each prism is named for the shape of its base. So for example, a box would be a rectangular prism. Now the important thing to remember here is that the shape will always have two bases that are congruent, and then the other sides will all be rectangles. So in a triangular prism, the top and the bottom, or the front and the back if you rotate it, are triangles that are congruent. All three other sides are rectangles. In a square prism, the top and bottom would be squares that are congruent, and the other sides are rectangles. Same thing in a pentagonal and hexagonal prism, but the bases are pentagons and hexagons. Now, in the first lesson, we learned about what surface area is. Surface area is the total area of the surface of a three-dimensional object. The number of square units it would take to cover a three-dimensional object is what we are finding when we find surface area. A good example of the time you would find surface area in real life would have been wrapping a present or when you frost a cake. When you wrap a present, you want to think, how many squares of wrapping paper do I need to cover this whole box or this whole present? It's also the amount of material a company uses to make a box. So however much cardboard they need tells you the surface area of that box. So today we're going to learn actually how to find surface area and volume. So to find surface area, you add up the areas of all the sides or faces. So this first example is a rectangular prism, and to add up the areas of all the sides or faces, I'm first going to calculate the areas of each side. So first I'm going to look at the front side. This front side is a 4 centimeter by 5 centimeter rectangle. So to find the area of this side, I would multiply 4 by 5. Now, this rectangle, keep in mind, has a twin, the opposite side that would be back here that we cannot see. That's going to also be a 4 by 5 rectangle. We'll account for that later. And the next rectangle I'm going to look at is a 3 by 5 side. This is the right side of the rectangular prism. To find the area of that rectangle, I would multiply 3 by 5. And again, that has another side that's also 3 by 5, and it's the left side of the prism. So we can't see that side, but we can. Then the top of the prism is our third rectangle. It has the bottom, which is the same size as it, and we'll have the same area. The top rectangle, or top side, is 3 centimeters by 4 centimeters, so to find its area, I would multiply 3 by 4. Now, I know I want to add these areas up, because to find the surface area, you add the areas of all the sides or faces. Right now, I'm only accounting for 3 of those sides, the front, the right side, and the top. To make sure that I account for the areas of all the sides, I'm going to multiply the sum of these areas by 2. So I get 2 times 4 times 5, which is the area of the front, which is 20, plus 3 times 5, which is the area of the side, which is 15, plus 3 times 4, which is the area of the top, which is 12. Like I said, we also know that this side has an area of 15, this back side has an area of 20, and the bottom has an area of 12. So I multiply 20 plus 15 plus 12 by 2 to account for that. 20 plus 15 plus 12 is 47. 47 times 2 is 94 centimeters squared. There is a formula for calculating the surface area of any rectangular prism. times width plus length times height plus width times height, all times 2. The next shape we're going to find the surface area of is a triangular prism. To find the surface area of a triangular prism, you're going to add up the areas of all the sides or faces. The first face I'm going to look at is the triangular face. We know that the front of the triangular prism and the back of this triangular prism are congruent triangles. So I'm going to find the area of one and multiply it by 2, so I count for both of those. Now to find the area of a triangle, you multiply the base times the height. So the base is this bottom side of the triangle, which in this case is 5, by the height, which in this case is 2.5, and then divide that by 2. So for future reference, that's how you find the area of a triangle. For this problem, that would be, like I said, 5 times 2.5 divided by 2. And like I said, I'm going to multiply that by 2 because I know I have 2 triangles, the one in front and the one in the back. 2.5 times 5 is 12.5, divided by 2 is 6.25, or 6 and 1/4. And then when I multiply that by 2, I get 12.5, or 12 and a half. Now the other faces of this triangular prism are all rectangles. We have 3 different sized rectangles. So I'm going to start with the bottom. The bottom of this triangular prism is a 7-foot by 5-foot rectangle. So to find the area of that rectangle, I multiply 7 by 5. Then the next rectangle I'm going to look at is this one right here. The one on the right side of the triangular prism, and that is 7 feet by 3 feet. So to find the area, I multiply 7 by 3. And last, I'm going to look at the right side of the triangular prism, and that rectangle is 5 feet by 7 feet. So I multiply 7 by 5. Now, in this case, it worked out that the height, or the width of this rectangle was 5 feet, and the width of the bottom rectangle was 5 feet. Sometimes those will be different measurements. So now I have all my different areas, and I'm going to add them up. So I know that the areas for the 2 triangles are 6.25, so I multiplied it by 2 and got 12.5. Then I'm going to add to that 7 times 5, which is 35, and 7 times 3, which is 21, and then 7 times 5 again, which is another 35, and 12.5 plus 35 plus 21 plus 35 is 103.5. So the surface area of this triangular prism is 103.5 feet squared. There really isn't a formula for finding the surface area of a triangular prism. The best way to do it is just to think of each face separately and then add up all their areas. The next concept we're going to talk about is volume. Volume is the amount of space that a 3-dimensional object occupies. The number of cubic units it would take to fill a 3-dimensional object is what you find when you find volume. A good example of finding volume would be filling up a pool with water, figuring out how much water you would need. Filling up a box with cereal and figuring out how much cereal you need. Anytime you're filling an object. So to find the volume, you multiply the area of the base by the height of the prism or cylinder. Today we're just going to work on prisms. So in this case we have a rectangular prism. So the base of the rectangular prism is the rectangle on the bottom, which is a 4 centimeter by 3 centimeter rectangle. So to find the area of that 4 centimeter by 3 centimeter rectangle, you multiply 4 by 3, and then you multiply that by the height of the prism, which in this case is 5. So the area of the base is 4 times 3, which is 12. You multiply that by 5, you get 60. So the volume of this rectangular prism is 60 centimeters cubed. Usually we refer to the volume of a rectangular prism as the length times the width times the height. And that would be the formula for finding the volume of a rectangular prism. Triangular prisms are not quite as easy. So we're going to try another example with the triangular prism. So now we have the same prism that we just found the surface area of. We want to find the area of the base and multiply it by the height of the prism. Now, most of the time when you're given a triangular prism, it looks like a tent. So instead of the triangles being on the top and bottom like we usually think of the base, they're in the front and the back. They're still considered the base, and the height would be considered the distance between those two triangles. So to find this volume of this triangular prism, I'm going to find the area of the triangle and then multiply it by the distance between the two triangles, which is 7 feet. So to find the area of the triangle, I multiply the base, which is 5, by the height, which is 2.5, and divide that by 2. So that's the area of the triangle. Then I'll multiply that by the height, okay, which is the distance between the two triangles, and in this case that's 7. So far 5 times 2.5, which is 12.5, divided by 2, which is 6.25, times 7. And that's all you need to do to find the volume. You just multiply the area of the base by the height. And for this triangular prism, the area or volume is 43.75 or 43.75 feet cubed. Volume is always in cubic units because you're figuring out how many cubes it would take to fill the prism. So please let me know if you have any questions on surface area or volume. I am more than happy to help you figure out the surface area volume of any prism that is presented to you in this lesson.